Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to be with you all. Although this is a recording, but I hope you guys are having a very fruitful event this morning with all of you. I would like to present my research and the update on the new Global Plastic Treaty under the UNEA, United Nations Environment Assembly 5.2 that is currently now being discussed in Geneva. So let me share my screen with you. And as you can see on your screen, this research is a report by a consortium of experts. So we have Ecologic Institute, the ALG Group, the University of Philippines Law Center, the Asia Pacific Center for Environmental Law in National University of Singapore, and Faculty of Law, Thammasat University, and supported by the German Federal Ministry of the Environment, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety for the WWF. So this research was done in 2021, 2022, so around 1 year time. We were aiming to give our inputs to the first negotiation of UNEA in 2022. At that time, was going to start in March. So this research wrapped up in February 2022 and then submitted it to the UNEA. We studied 10 different countries, and then we look at several things from the perspective of the state, in this case, government officials who are going to negotiate for their countries for the global plastic treaties. So this report was to study the Asian perspectives on the global plastic pollution treaty in light of the growing momentum around the UNEA process. The target countries are many, but we then settled with 10 countries. And then this is like the timeline, which I'm just going to skip. These are what we looked for, the action plans to respond to plastic pollution, the phase out of single-use plastic, and the EPR, or the extended producer responsibility. So these are the focus of the report. So for Asia, the countries have started to respond to plastic pollution crisis via national and regional action plans, even in 2022. For example, Indonesia, Japan, and Vietnam already adopted a national action plan dedicated for marine plastic pollution. Similar plans are in preparation in Malaysia, the Philippines, and Sri Lanka. China already has a plan for plastic pollution control. Laos is in the process of preparing national plastic action plan. Thailand has a national action plan on plastic waste management. Korea has adopted a marine plastic pollution with different approach, right? And regionally in ASEAN, we also have had regional action plan for combating marine debris adopted in 2021. And COPSI, the coordinating body on the seas of East Asia, has revised action plan on marine litter in 2019. So several things already undergoing in our region for the action plan on plastic and marine plastic pollution. And for phasing out of single-use plastics, we have seen this in several countries, such as Bhutan, India, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Timor-Leste. There are other policies, for example, in Indonesia and several localities in Indonesia, and Japan, Korea, Malaysia, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam. So other than that, we also focus on EPR. And you can see in our report that Japan has introduced EPR packaging in 1995, so a long time ago, and Korea in the year 2000, so 25 years ago. And most countries started to introduce EPR in the last 5 years. For example, China, India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. So Indonesia has a regulation since 2008, but no implementation. And EPR also introduced in the Philippines with no enforcement. So it varies, right? In Singapore, for example, there's already an EPR regulation slated for 2025, but delayed for implementation. So while some countries have introduced mandatory EPR schemes, others have opted for voluntary schemes. So, and then we also see the challenges, right? We like across the board, across of all the countries that we research, there's a lack of data along the life cycle of plastic. There's a gap in monitoring and knowledge. There's a lack of access to financial resources and technology. There's a limited response options for coastal plastic pollution. There's ineffective management of plastic waste, and there's a lack of engagement with the industry sector. So I will not go one by one because you can read it in the report. But in general, it's not just small countries who are facing this, but also bigger countries. Like for Indonesia, for example, when we interviewed uh, the public official, they say they want to have the Global Plastic Treaty as a push because when they're negotiating against the plastic industry, they feel really small. I mean, this is Indonesia we're talking about. It's a huge country, and they still feel very small when they're negotiating against Coca-Cola or Unilever or one of those, mega big MNCs. So we also asked them the added value of Global Plastic Treaty. Like, what would you like this treaty to have, right? What would you like it to have? So they said they want a treaty that could scale up national targets by all countries, a treaty that could provide access for financial resources and technical assistance, a treaty that could incentivize technology transfer to improve plastic waste management, especially collection, recycling, and treatment of the plastic waste, a treaty that could determine the common methodologies for monitoring and reporting, a treaty that could improve plastic waste management in all countries, and a treaty that could, excuse me, harmonize design standards for plastic products. And also a treaty that could reduce single-use plastic due to similar rules in all countries, and therefore provide stronger incentives for industry to develop environmentally friendly products. So those are what we have accumulated from all these countries that we interviewed. And we also sort of asked them to design, like, if you were designing the treaties, how would it look like? And you see it here, like objectives, goals, and targets. Different countries want different objectives, but most of them want to end plastic pollution, and then comprehensive life cycle approach, obligation to prevent plastic pollution, extended producer responsibility, and how to handle microplastic. And other than that, it's like common elements of institutional structure, support mechanisms, finance, monitoring, reporting, and implementation and compliance, as you can see. So now I would like to take you to my other presentation. Aside from this research, that would sort of give you an update of where we are today, right? Just remember all of these things, like what added value that the countries would like the treaties to have, right? Scaling up financial resources, technology transfer, common methodologies, improvement of plastic waste, harmonization of design standard for plastic product, reducing single-use plastic, and this one, improvement access and knowledge that is collected and shared via dedicated science policy interface. So . Now we go to what we have in 2024. As you can see on your screen, it's a zero draft that faltered in Busan, right? Actually, what we had in Busan was quite commendable. It the preamble itself is somewhat complete. There's a mention of the small island developing states. There's an Agenda 2030 on SDGs there. There's a mention of Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, 1992. There's a mention of UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which is very important when we're talking about vulnerable people in plastic pollution. And then there's science policy interface at all levels, effective and progressive action at the local, regional, and global levels. So this sort of answered what the ASEAN Asian perspective of what is the added value for treaties, right? Additionally, there's also resolutions and instruments on international environmental law listed, right, under the UN, listed in the preamble. It's probably also problematic because not all states are parties to all of this. So maybe that's why the current the current text that they will negotiate in Geneva is somehow a watered down provisions when we compare it to the zero draft. So the preamble itself didn't mention specific countries or vulnerable countries. There's no SIPs, there's no LDCs, least developed countries, missing the mention of IEL instruments. There's no instruments mentioned, including General Assembly, resolution, and SDGs. And UNDRIP were gone. So there's no indigenous knowledge, local knowledge mentioned in the preamble. And the objective is also very different. Well, not very different, but there's an exclusion of the phrase to end plastic pollution that was there in zero draft, and it's not there anymore in the chair text. So, which I think it should be in the agreement. But when we go like through one by one, like the preamble, we already discussed the preamble, and then principle and approaches, you'll see there's option 0, which is no article. If the parties decided to adopt option 0, there won't be principle and approaches in the treaty. But there are 3 options. We're not going to go one by one, but that's what we have in the chair text, right? For definitions, it's already all good to go, I suppose. Only the C2C here, 2 paragraph C, has brackets, which means it can stay, it can go, or half of it can stay, half of it can go, or some of it can stay, some of it can go. So it's still negotiated what plastic pollution means. But other things that should be here is not here. For example, the definition of life cycle, microplastic, nanoplastic, polymers, recycling, etc. is not here. So I'm just wondering why. And then for plastic products, it's there. Most of it are still in parentheses. It's too hard to tell which one the parties will go through, like will choose for the negotiation. It's very diluted criteria for product regulation, which now hinge on sufficient scientific evidence to prove threats on health of the environment, which introduce necessary delays, right? And then it goes on and on, right? Although they have this plastic products, and then they have this annex for plastic products and the phase out date, and then it's followed by the Article 4 on exemption. The exemption doesn't have any limits, right? It will limit 5 years after relevant phase out is listed, but they can like apply for another exemption. So the more we go and see it, the more very diluted the articles are in the chair text. So now we totally depend upon the grace and eloquent of negotiators for the plastic pollution plastic treaty to understand the urgency of this. I think it's been quite soft in comparison to the zero draft, right? So yeah, so if you remember the added value that we requested from Asia in order to be able to uh, uh, be an added value at all, we need all of them to be accommodated in this treaty. If not 100%, we at least want 90% for it to help. So, for example, on just transition, there's no mention of dedicated fund or clear modality to support informal workers and affected communities. Um, there's a risk of sidelining critical stakeholders here. The transition to sustainable system must be equitable, yet the treaty offers no assurance on just transition. So, and it goes, yeah. So, what I'm not going to comment too much on this because it's still ongoing. But however, uh, let's hope that the current negotiation will be successful and it won't be just an accommodative treaty, but also a treaty that is usable and implementable and be able to really stop the global plastic pollution and protect the environment. I think this is from me. I will thank all of you and also give it back to the moderator. Thank you.